What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 43 of the Healthy Sleep Revolution podcast. I am your host, Dr. Meghna Dasani. Today, I wanted to take a couple of minutes to answer this question that a listener actually sent to me on Instagram. And she said, "My child has symptoms of sleep apnea, but her tonsils and adenoids look fine. Now what?" This is a fairly common question I get asked when we have parents bring their kids into the practice. As we've discussed in previous episodes, as I am a firm believer in the current first line of treatment for pediatric sleep apnea, for pediatric sleep disordered breathing, is getting a ENT, a tonsil eval, getting those tonsils and adenoids evaluated. Is that a cause of the obstruction that is causing this sleep apnea, the sleep disordered breathing? And if it is, that first line of treatment is removal of tonsils and adenoids. But then what happens when the ENT, your dentist, your child's quote unquote sleep team fail to find an issue with their tonsils and adenoids? Now, don't get me wrong, we're glad that the child doesn't have a problem. But then it leads us to the question of what next? What do I do now? In some children, the obstruction that contributes to their symptoms, to the sleep disordered breathing, to the sleep apnea, is caused by swollen tonsils and adenoids. Other physical features can also lead to sleep apnea in kids. One that jumps right off at me is an unresolved tongue tie. A tethered tongue cannot rest in the roof of the mouth during sleep. What is our normal resting posture? What is the ideal resting posture supposed to look like in anybody? Lips together, breathing through the nose, and the tongue resting passively in the roof of the mouth. For a child, and I say a child because in this episode, we're discussing pediatric sleep apnea. For a child that has a tongue tie, a tethered tongue, they are, by way of this physical constriction that they are unable to have that tongue rest passively in the roof of the mouth during sleep. Instead, what this tongue does do when this child falls asleep, because remember, when we fall asleep, our muscles relax, the tongue relaxes too. And it has only one place to go in such a situation, in the back of the throat. What it ends up doing is it ends up blocking that windpipe. So if we have a child that has a tongue tie that has not been resolved, that has not been revised, this tie could be contributing very well to that child's sleep apnea issues. The good news, though, is that even at older ages, this revision, the release, the frenectomy as it's called, this procedure is simple and can actually provide instant relief. Word of caution, though, when we are performing, when your child has this frenectomy done, and if it's an older child, you always want to make sure that this is in conjunction with myofunctional therapy, making sure you're working with the team. And it could be a body worker, it could be a chiropractor, it could be a craniosacral therapist. It most certainly should involve your myofunctional therapist along with your dentist, making sure that all of these ducks are in a row. So we know that older children could have developed, and I say this in air quotes, bad habits because they were coping with the tongue tie. And by these habits, I mean the tongue resting in a not so ideal position. Did these kids start to develop a tongue thrust? What is happening with this? In this case, your child, like I said earlier, we definitely want to make sure they're working with a myofunctional therapist, but they may also need some kind of an oral appliance, and that is where your dentist comes in. We want to teach this child the right position, how to and where to rest their tongue. hint in the roof of the mouth. When they're sleeping, we want it to become subconscious. We want it to be natural for these kids. Another reason that could contribute to the sleep disordered breathing in kids is children with a high and narrow palate. Remember, we've talked about how the roof of the mouth is also the floor of the nose. Circling back to if that child has a tongue tie or genetically the shape of the jaws, this could be contributing to, this could be causing that sleep apnea. A high, narrow palate changes the shape of the sinus cavity. It changes the shape of the upper airway. And this makes it harder for the child to get adequate oxygen while they're sleeping. So, for many children, an appliance such as an expander can help expand the palate. It can help reshape that sinus cavity, basically helps achieve that appropriate shape. And as a bonus, it could possibly also prevent future orthodontic issues. So, certainly making sure your dentist is evaluating your child for this. Last but not least, I want to touch upon allergies and asthma because poorly controlled allergies and asthma can make it difficult for a child to get enough oxygen at night. What this does is it causes micro arousals where that child is waking up just enough to where their sleep is disturbed, but they're not awake. They're not sitting up in bed talking, reading, watching TV, doing homework. This is where their brain wakes them up just enough. These microarousals can impact their overall quality of life. So if you suspect that your child may need allergy or asthma treatment, see their allergist, a pediatric allergist, see the ENT. Make sure your child is getting diagnosed. Do they have food allergies? Is it environmental allergies? What is going on to know how it needs to be addressed is key. So sleep issues affect every aspect of a child's life, and it can be frustrating when you don't have that obvious answer of, oh yes, it's the tonsils and adenoids that are contributing to it in that initial exam. So regardless whether or not that child's sleep disordered breathing issues, the obstructive sleep apnea is not caused by enlarged tonsils or adenoids, you want to make sure that you have a team around that child. Your child's care team can help track down these underlying issues and, more importantly, ensure that your child is getting the right treatment he or she needs to be able to breathe. Because we all know airway is life. If you haven't grabbed a copy of my book, Airway is Life, on Amazon, now is the time to do so. Thanks for tuning in. I will see you guys next time.